I'm sure that over the years, well, you may have heard some people describe Nigeria, our country Nigeria, as a mere geographical expression, or maybe as a forced marriage of, 1914. Well, that is getting old. What is important here is to state that Nigeria is a breathtaking experiment in diversity, and even though our unity, may feel fragile sometimes, maybe many times, it is still a work in progress. And so today, we want to discuss some of the things that are really holding us together as a people, as a country, and those things that are actively pulling us apart. My guest joins me from local Kogi State. He's one of our regular on this show, regular analyst on Insights, Hamza Aliyu. Yes, there he is. Hamza Aliyu is the Executive Director, Initiative for Grassroots Advancement. It has an acronym known as INGRA. Hamza, good to see you. I think this is the first time you're coming on Insights in 2026. 2026, I beg your pardon. Thank you so much for making our time to come on Insight.
Thank you, Nnamdi, for having me again. It's a pleasure being here once again.
Fantastic. So I think we best get an opener from you on some of the germane issues. If I were writing a thesis now, I would identify them as the keywords. These are patriotism, citizenship, and national ownership. All, of course, within the context of ensuring Nigeria's continued unity. Do you think, Hamza, that our society today is nurturing patriotism, patriotic and civil-minded citizens who are largely concerned about contributing meaningfully to our nation's progress? And if not, why not? If that isn't the case, Hamza.
Well, Nnamdi, that question is an existential question, because
Indeed,
we as a people, we need to clearly answer that question before we can move on as a nation. In trying to answer that question, I will say, and I heard from your background that you were talking about issues around that Nigeria is a mere contraption, that we were put together on paper in 1914, and all that history. There is no country that was born whole with that name from ab initio. So every country was created, every country was a contraption by human beings that got together and agreed that they will need to come together as a nation. So Nigeria own cannot be an exception. So that history, that conversation, that narrative that we are just a contraption cannot hold water, while we cannot find something to glue us together as a nation. In terms of nationhood, nationhood is a behavior. It's not something that you are born with. It's like being in a family. A child gets into a family not because the child wants to be there, but because the family has decided that that child should be there. And so they put up every conversation, every narrative to tell the child that you belong to this family. The same way with nationhood. We need to strategically and dedicatedly tell ourselves that we belong to Nigeria. It is that consistent and correct narrative that tells a human being that you are part of a system that gradually builds that confidence, builds that skill, builds that behavior of that person to be able to accept that they are part of the system. And so nationhood is a dedicated, strategic act that we put together and ensure that we install it. It's like a software in a computer. You install into a human being to say you belong to Nigeria and Nigeria is your nation. It doesn't matter what, I don't know, I keep hearing when people say that what has the nation done for me, that patriotism should be born out of what the nation has done for you. No, it doesn't matter what your family do for you. What matters is that I am part of my family. My family is what matters, not what I'm gaining from my family. So it's not a transactional concept. It's an emotive concept. You may not be able to define why you belong to your family, but you belong there because you were told that you belong there. And it's that sense of ownership that comes up that makes you patriotic. So I think, to answer your question clearly, we have not done enough, quite frankly, as a nation, to instill that software into individuals to say, you are a Nigerian, not because of what Nigeria has done for you, but what you are able to do for Nigeria, and that it gives you a sense of belonging. So I think there is need probably if we go further into the conversation, to say
Yes.
that we need to be strategic and need to be deliberate about how we push this information to our citizens, to say we need to be more Nigerian than we are actually right now doing.
Indeed, Hamza, and they will say patriotism is not citizenship, or patriotism rather is not related on citizenship. And I mean, which is which right now? Which is a derivative of this? Do I become patriotic because I'm a citizen of a nation? Do I take ownership, national ownership of statehood or nationhood because I'm a citizen of that country? You know, over time, I have had cause, to agree with some persons, who argue, they argue this distinction between being unified and being united as a country. I mean, these are two different concepts. A lot of people would argue that, yes, by virtue of, like I did say earlier, the amalgamation of South, Northern Protectorate, we became a country, and so we were unified into one country. Are we united? And there lies the question. But let me ask you this, Hamza. What does it mean when analysts, experts like yourself say, and this is something I know you've alluded to earlier, when you insist that the future of our nation, of Nigeria, lies, of course, not solely in the hands of the government, but in that collective resolve of its citizens. Exactly what does that portend and mean for each and every citizen of Nigeria?
Well, Nnamdi, that question about, I think, let me go back to that issue where you raised, what comes first? Is it citizenship or patriotism? The issue here is not, one doesn't necessarily lead to the other one. You can be patriotic and not be a citizen. You can be a citizen and not be patriotic. So you can do either one. They can be mutually exclusive, but they are mutually reinforcing. If you are a citizen, then you are expected to be patriotic. So that is the bottom line of it. In terms of the question as per which one do we push forward first, in terms of how do we push citizenship or we push patriotism first? For me, if you're going to build a nation, we must begin to instill the discipline to our children and to the ones that are coming behind us, or even to the older ones, that Nigeria is a concept that matters to us, not because of the material we gain from Nigeria, but because of what Nigeria means to us as a people. You see a lot of people claim that I am Igbo, I am Yoruba, I am Hausa. The question with that is, are you Hausa, Igbo, or Yoruba because you speak the language, or because you were born there? Many people cannot answer that question. They feel that because they speak the language makes them from that area. No. So you have outsiders who speak the language more than you, who is from that place, and yet they are not from that place. You have those who were born there, and they are not from there. So your geography and your history cannot make you an indigene or a citizen of a place. Rather, it's the deliberate effort. And that's why countries like the United States and other developed climes, they bring people from outside and they, what there's a lack of a better phrase for it, they culture you into becoming a citizen of that country. They train you, they actually brainwash you into thinking and feeling that you are from that country. And you see them swearing allegiance to the United States, swearing allegiance to Japan, swearing allegiance to UK, and they will actually die swearing that allegiance. And yet, when they are in their country, Nigeria, they don't swear allegiance. Rather, they swear allegiance to their tribe or swear allegiance to their religion. It's because we have not been deliberate enough in inculcating that sense of oneness. And that doesn't come from just having a passport or having a school certificate that says you are from a particular state. No. It comes from deliberate, I don't want to use the word brainwashing, but that is what it actually is. You culture, you school, you program someone into being patriotic. The same way you culture and mold the person into being a religious person is how you mold the person into being a patriotic person to the nation. So we need to do enough. I love the way what the military did before. Okay. Creation of MAMSA and probably NOA to some extent. But NOA has not done much. MAMSA was what was used then. And I think we need to begin to do more towards how MAMSA was created and what it was supposed to do.
I think it's quite instructive. I think it's quite instructive to note something you said earlier when you said we as a people need to embrace, collectively embrace, this responsibility of nurturing. What it then means, and that goes back to the same question that I asked you earlier about, the future of Nigeria not lying solely in the hands of government, but it has to be, a collective responsibility of all. It means you and I, whether as private citizens, of course, parents, teachers in schools and all of that, collectively need to embrace this tax. I like how you've thrown up this issue and expanded.
I think, let me just quickly.
Yes, please.
Let me just quickly respond to that.
Yes.
Government is not an entity that exists on its own. Government is a contraption that we citizens put in place to be able to put us to bring together our Commonwealth, yes, and hold our Commonwealth in trust for us.
True.
And so government cannot be the one we should usurp our powers to.
Very true. Very true. I was just, before your last intervention or this intervention, I was going to say, yes, I like how you've thrown open this whole conversation. You raised the issue of dual identity, and I think that factors into this whole discourse as well. But maybe we'll talk about that down the line. You did, however, introduce or inferred some historical perspective to this discourse. And I think maybe we should go with that for now. For me, sometimes, if not most of the time, when this whole issue of unity and social cohesion arise, I wonder, and often so, how deeply ingrained and to what extent, some of these, I call them competing historical narratives. And I'm talking about, issues like the Civil War, for instance, issues like our history or past, with colonialism, and that, how all of that have all joined to impact, our unity, our sense of unity and all of that. I'm even talking about, even when we look at things and how things are right now, we take the issue of federal resource allocation as well. I mean, that's one of the issues that have impacted, or, how we feel or think or perceive each other. Some of these issues, they remain, like I did say, fundamental bedrock for the level of distrust and, current regional agitations in Nigeria. We have a National Assembly, yes. It's called the People's House. It's supposed to foster dialogue and help us navigate some of these issues. But is that what is effectively playing out in your opinion? How then can a national dialogue reshape this narrative for social cohesion in Nigeria, Hamza?
Well, that conversation around whether our history has any impact on what our current nationalistic narrative is, for me, is pedestrian. It's really pedestrian, because if you look at other countries, take for instance the United States, they had a war, they had a civil war. So, but did that civil war define who they are right now? No. Rather, the civil war is used more as an impetus for their development. They see it as something that made them what they are today. Nigerians should stop looking at the civil war and seeing it as if it's the reason where we are right now. No. A war was fought because there was need to fight it at that time. Lessons were learned, and we need to move forward with those lessons and ensure that we don't repeat those lessons. But somewhere along the line, individuals and groups seem to be playing around with that idea that we have not learned the lesson and we should do that war again. No nation ever fights two civil wars. It doesn't happen. If you do that, you disintegrate completely. So, for me, the Civil War should be used as an impetus, a yardstick, a platform on which we build our current nationalistic view of who we are. Other countries have gotten the same history that we have, and they have moved forward. The ones that did not get this history, we are bound to repeat their mistakes consistently. Congo is one of it, for instance. They have been repeating those one. Rwanda has sworn that they will not repeat it, and they seem to be learning gradually. Nigeria should learn fast that our history should be a further for our development. And I think that our national institutions, if we do not support our national institutions to grow, and I think that's a part of where we have failed as a nation or as a people to inculcate what the national structure should be. For instance, what should our flag stand for? What should our National Assembly stand for? What should our Constitution stand for? And when I mean stand for, what does it mean to us? If you hear a citizen of the United States stand up to recite their national anthem, there is pride in it. Not because of what the nation can do for them, according to what late President Kennedy said. It's not what the nation can do for you, but what you can do for your nation. And I think that we need to begin from the home front. It is not a government thing. Government is a collective of what we all are as a people. Government, the family is the unit of what the government looks like. If we don't tell our children that Nigeria is your home and you should cherish what Nigeria stands for, then there's no need why the government can do very little. We cannot make laws that say you must be patriotic. If you're not patriotic, we're taking you to jail. No, you can't do that. Human beings don't behave that way. It is the individual that must inculcate it in the child to say, this is what you stand for. You are a Nigerian first before you are a Yoruba, Igbo, or Hausa. You are a Nigerian first before you are a Christian, Muslim, or you are Ifa priest. You must show that Nigeria comes first. And you deliberately tell the child over and over and over until the child begins to understand that I am a Nigerian first. It is a lot of work. We have a lot of people who we call Nigerians who are not Nigerians in character. They do not appreciate what Nigeria stands for. They do not appreciate what our value system is. And they don't exemplify what a Nigerian should be outside. Rather, you hear what is called, this is Nigeria now. You should understand that I'm a Nigerian. And this is African. We even have a concept called African time. Actually, it's Nigerian time. It's actually Nigerian time. And it's very annoying when you hear that. This is not what Nigeria should be. So I think individuals, parents, guardians, caregivers, all eat a responsibility that if we must build a nation, then we have to begin to deliberately tell our children that Nigeria is what you are first, before you are anything else.
You know, earlier on, you threw up this whole issue of dual identity, and I said we were going to talk about that. You know, but, you know, and this people dimension, even in no matter or however governance structure that we have in place, it's quite germane. So, because it tells us clearly, like we have a democracy here, that our democracy, you know, is caught in that trap. That trap, or, you know, some of all is playing out now. We see manifestations, you know, every day. You know, I don't know if you remember, but I do remember that sometime you and I, we had this conversation. I don't know whether it was 2 or 3 years ago, but something very similar to this issue. And, you know, we engaged in that conversation, a conversation basically on dual identity, but more on social cohesion. I asked you then how Nigerians, and indeed Nigeria, can actively cultivate a shared national identity, one that is robust enough to allow us peacefully coexist and to even strengthen our deep, you know, seated ethnic and religious identities. I remember back then that while you were talking, I just quickly shouted, Hamza, the only time we get united is when Super Eagles is playing football. Then we sing national anthem with so much passion. You know, sometimes we even forget ourselves when we sing national anthem, whether the old one or the new one or the new old one. I don't know which is older, you know. And then I see shout, up Eagles at the end of national anthem. Because that's about the only time. You know, or the most time that you see people, you know, passionate about some of the things Nigerian. You know, but perhaps this time, in, further, talking about this issue, perhaps this time you can buttress some of the issues, by identifying some effective models from other deeply diverse nations like Nigeria, where they've been able to create this national identity, whether it's language, whether it's sports, something that collectively binds them, that helps them, to blur those lines, those ethno-religious lines. Perhaps you can do that for us if your thoughts or your thinking or perception has changed since the last time you and I talked about this issue.
I think the main issue is, what strategy do we use to build that nationalistic thinking or that patriotic zeal that we want to install as an application to our people? I think I still stand by what we said the last time. One area I'm very passionate about, and I think the Americans have gotten it, and even all the other developed climes have gotten it, is their film industry.
Soft diplomacy.
If you look at our film industry, you will see that what we are promoting is not nationalistic in nature.
Yes. Please continue, Hamza. Sorry to butt in there, but please continue.
Okay, so what I was saying was that our films don't portray us as a nation. Rather, our films are more about our religion and our ethnicity. So you can see that even without government coming in, we are doing things like, for lack of a better phrase, we are behaving like children. The Americans in their film industry, they promote the American ideal. What is the American ideal? That America is the greatest nation in the world. So all their stories, whether it's a love story, it's a tragedy, name it, any kind of film they make, they will eventually arrive at that the American nation, the American is the greatest human being God has created. That is not just a message, it's a brainwashing of the American citizen, to the point that even you who is watching the American movies always end up saying the American nation is the greatest. Not because they have the greatest army in the world, but they have the greatest belief that they are the greatest. Now, when it comes to that, apart from sports, Nollywood is the biggest other configuration that we have that we can change our people's mindset. But unfortunate for us, producers and movie and actors and script writers do not write scripts about nationalistic tendencies. No, we are always writing scripts about what do you call it? And that's why I don't watch Nigerian movie in my house. I don't like it. Honestly, I don't, because it doesn't portray. I don't see what is given to my children. It tells you that what do you call it? Juju and religion. That God, the religion always has effect. What do you call it? It overshadows juju. I don't understand how somebody can craft a movie.
We're beginning to see.
And the only thing they are showing is that church is over juju, and the whole 3 hours movie will be crafted around that one. And you will see actors acting and dissipating energy on that. And you're seeing other climes, when they do their movies, they use this to teach children something. And we're allowing our kids to watch this, and we're surprised that our kids are not nationalistic, they're not patriotic. They are not, because our movies and our television, apart from NTA, maybe, there are other things they watch on television does not bring people together. The second one is that our curriculum does not talk about nationalism. It's a surprise. When you go to other countries and you want to become a citizen of other countries, you go through
civic education is there.
You go through.
Hamza, but we do have civic education there.
Yes, civic education is there. What is the content of that civic education? Because when you teach a child that Nigeria, we hail thee, is your national anthem, you have not told that child what those individual words mean to the child. The child is singing it. After singing, they go their way. And now adults are beginning to say, we will not sing the national anthem because the national anthem is a new one. It was crafted by ABC and Tinubu. It is not our own. All those things, our children are listening to it. You're telling a child that this government, this police, this soldier are all fraudulent, that politicians are thieves, and that we should not believe them. These are our structures that we use to build a nation. When you bring down those things in front of a child, the child believes that those things don't work.
True.
Remember, nationalism and patriotism is not about what is the current issue with the structure. No, it is what the structure should be in the future for us. So we have a lot of work to do. Our film industry, our education industry sector, we need to bring them together to be able to have one common strategy in terms of our building our nation forward. And I think we're doing a very bad job at it, because the new generation of Nigerians we're having now do not believe in Nigeria as a nation.
Let's talk about
Nigeria in terms of Naira and Kobo.
I think we'll end our conversation on these notes, this new generation of Nigerians that you just raised now. And, you know, do I use the word mainstreaming? Inculcating. I think inculcating will be more appropriate. Inculcating some of these values and attributes in them. You know, I think of off camera, you know, just before, I think it was yesterday or some days ago, you and I talked about this whole issue playing out on social media. Maybe we'll put that on the table and end on that note. You know, I remember telling you that I am not strong enough to walk those streets. I mean, what I see, the online trolling, the fights, in fact, the entire and general ambience, you know, belies what such a vibrant community should be doing. And, you know, there are germane issues of concern, especially, you know, with the focus of our youth demographics in Nigeria. You and I know that we're saying this is a country with over 60% of its current population under the age of 25. So it's clear that this structure should be driving the process of unity and development, you know, through mobilization, youth mobilization, through, you know, effective and proper use of digital media. But what do we see? You know, you see a space that is, I don't know the word to describe it. But I'm sad. My question, and this probably is my last question to you, how can this demography, you know, become the engine for a new unified national consciousness, you know, in Nigeria, rather than allow itself to be radicalized into deeper divisions by the same, you know, socio-economic pressures, you know, playing out. And now we see these online battles that flame division in Nigeria.
Well, Nnamdi, I agree with you that the youth population of Nigeria is an advantage to us if properly harnessed. But I don't agree that the youth are the ones that are allowing themselves to be used. Rather, I feel that they are victims of this crime. It was us that gave birth to them, and we told them that Nigeria doesn't work. We were the ones that prepared this monster that we are seeing now. And like you said, the social media is the most toxic place for anybody to be in. If you want to keep your sanity, please do not go on social media, especially on X. You're going to hear things that will really, really worry you, and you won't be able to sleep. And you're going to be imagining that these are supposed to be, like the cliche says, the leaders of tomorrow. Now, if the leaders of tomorrow have this mindset, then we are in big, big trouble. Because as we speak, we have some Nigerian youth who, if given the opportunity, they will sell the nation and keep the change in their pockets. Because of what we, the parents, told them. We should not accuse them of the crime. And if we want to change this, then we must make deliberate effort, because we caused this problem. We must find a way to deal with it. I heard the government talking about, I think it was the minister that said the government is thinking about regulating social media. I am for it.
No,
but it should not be at the expense of free speech.
On notice.
We must find a way around it.
Yes. What he did was to put them on notice, actually, saying, look, there should be a responsible
but we can't put young people on notice.
We are the parents of those young people. He's calling for responsible use of social media. Responsible use of social media.
Yeah, we need to teach them. The same way we taught them that they must be responsible in drinking alcohol and responsible in smoking tobacco, we must also show them that the social media is also a danger if you take it without being responsible. Responsibility is not about creating laws. No, it's about making the individual appreciate the consequence of the action they are about to take and understand that we have ethics and things that we take as values when we come to society. In Africa, it is wrong for you to talk down on an elder. It is wrong for you to insult your fellow human being in public. It is wrong for you. There are a lot of things that we teach, they taught us as young people growing up, that we failed to teach our children. And I think that we, the parents, are the failures. We need to rethink how we are building the mindset of our children. For me, it's the parents that are at fault here and need to do more.
Need to do more. Nigerians need to do more. Everyone, you and I, we need to do more. Well, after all, the children are very quite impressionable, and they learn from what they see more and do from what they see adults do.
Exactly.
Hamza Liu, the Executive Director, Initiative for Grassroots Advancement, INGRA. I'd like to thank you so much for your insight on this matter. Of course, there are a whole lot more to this conversation, that we could talk about, but for lack of time, we'll take them one at a time and we'll see how it goes. Thank you so much for coming on Insight.